Hello everybody, this is some random Neko, waking up from her nap to greet the world for the day. And by greet, I mean get involved in the Disney Snow White live action drama by not getting involved at all, because I'm not morbidly curious enough to waste my time or money watching it, at least not yet. Anyways, while the selection for adaptations is not as varied as it is with a tale like Cinderella, there are other Snow White adaptations out there that are definitely worth your time. The one I'm going to be talking about today still manages to hold up even 13 years later, and is still the better Snow White live action adaptation I've seen so far. And I say better, not best, because I've only watched a few Snow White adaptations, and they're all different enough from each other that they shouldn't be judged by the same standards. For example, Snow White and the Huntsman has a whole different genre and tone going for it. Once Upon a Time doesn't count because that's a TV show and this is a film review. Same deal with Akagami no Shirayuki Hime, which is an anime and very different from the original tale. And Red Shoes and the Seven Dwarfs is an animated film with a whole can of worms that I plan to open up later down the line. Now where was I? Oh right, Mirror Mirror. After spending all her money on beauty treatments to keep herself looking young, an evil queen schemes to marry a handsome wealthy prince and maintain control over her kingdom. There's just one problem. Snow White, the beautiful orphan princess and the rightful ruler of said kingdom. When a charming prince spurns the queen in favor of the princess, the queen has Snow White thrown into the forest to be devoured by a fearsome beast. Rescued by a band of thieving dwarves, Snow White launches into a battle of good versus evil and vows to take back her kingdom from the treacherous queen. As you can probably tell by the summary, Mirror Mirror is a lighthearted and comedic, bordering on parody, live-action adaptation of Snow White. Its story is unique and the adaptation interesting, as they put their own spin on key elements of the original tale and place equal focus on both Snow White and the Evil Queen. Speaking of the Evil Queen, she is hands down the best character in this film. I actually love the character a lot despite the fact that she's the villain. She's vain, narcissistic, and only cares about being the hero of her own story while using the magic of the magic mirror to get what she wants. The magic mirror is also a fun and intriguing element that adds depth and humor to the queen's story by being a more youthful reflection of her and warning her to get introspective through brilliantly snarky little comments. Then on the other side of the story, we've got Snow White. She's adorable, kind-hearted, and cares about the people of her kingdom, wanting to do all she can for them when she learns of their struggles under the evil queen. She's alright by herself, but unlike the queen who can pull off being a one-woman show, Snow White truly shines when she's interacting with other characters. I enjoyed watching her grow as a person and a queen, becoming more confident in herself while still retaining her kindness when she finally leaves her castle to meet the people outside of it. And the characters she meets outside are great in their own right as well. The Seven Dwarfs are amazing characters with their own distinct personalities and great comedic timing. Not a single moment with them ever feels like a waste. I honestly wish there were more scenes with them and would have loved to see them in their own spin-off film as well. They were really just that good. And the prince is a justice-driven individual who serves as a good love interest for Snow White, with some nice chemistry going on between them. The comedy is great, and you can really tell that everyone's having a great time making the film, which adds to the lighthearted and fun feeling it's got going on. It doesn't take itself too seriously until it has to, and even then, it's only serious enough to match what's going on. It basically takes its unseriousness very seriously, but still has just the right amount of seriousness to prevent it from becoming a parody, if that makes any sense. It also makes fun of certain fairy tale elements or subverts them in a way that doesn't feel odd or forced. Also, I love the running gag with the bandits stripping everyone of their outer layers, and how it isn't just an excuse to get the prince half naked, but a gag that affects everyone who ends up being robbed by the dwarves. Speaking of the dwarf robberies, the action and fight choreography is surprisingly good for a film that's essentially a comedic fairy tale. It's also really creative too, what with the accordion-like stilts the dwarves use to make themselves more intimidating, and the fight smarter not harder mentality they employ by using the environment to their advantage. The costume designs are really striking and interesting. You can tell the costume department had a lot of fun going all out with designing and making them. However, it's also where the visual aspect of not quite a parody comedy comes into play considering how ridiculous some of the costumes looked. And I'm sure this will 100% be an unpopular opinion, but I actually prefer every other outfit of Snow White's, barring the dumb headpiece for the swan dress, over her ending dress. I don't know if it's the colors or the cut or what, but I just can't appreciate it or anything. But if you do, then that's great, because my opinion is just based on my subjective taste in fashion. Still, despite how dumb some of the costumes look, I do enjoy how the designs are symbolic to the characters who wear them, like how the queen is vain and narcissistic, so she's dressed like a peacock, or in gold clothing, and the swan symbolizes beauty, grace, and purity, all of which Snow White embodies. The soundtrack is decent enough, though there's nothing really memorable about it except for the end credits song, which has a Bollywood vibe that really fits the overall tone and design of the film. It's also just damn good fun to see the characters breaking out into a little dance number while Snow White sings a song. But the best part of the film is honestly the casting, which was brilliant. The evil queen role was tailor-made for Julia Roberts, who really put everything she had into it and made the film that much more enjoyable with her presence alone. Lily Collins was a great Snow White, who looked and acted the part really well, despite some confusing direction with her dialogue delivery. Armie Hammer was a funny and charming Prince Charming. And let's give a standing ovation to the casting department for actually casting actors with dwarfism to play the dwarves, instead of being cowards like the casting department for Snow White and the Huntsman and Disney Snow White. We've got Danny Woodburn as Will Grimm, Martin Kleba as Butcher, Mark Povinelli as Half Pint, Jordan Prentice as Napoleon, Sebastian Saraceno as Wolf, Joey Nafo as Grub, Ronald Lee Clark as Chuckles, and oh look, no Peter Dinklage, because there actually are other actors with dwarfism out there besides him. Who would have thunk? Now, as much as I enjoy Mirror Mirror, that doesn't mean it isn't without its flaws. I love Snow White, but she's got some inconsistent dialogue delivery that took me out of the viewing experience sometimes. I don't know what direction they were trying to go with it, but it kept jumping back and forth from formal and soft to casual and confident. In the beginning, the formal and soft speech fits because Snow White was shut inside a castle for years and only ever interacted with the queen and the staff. Then, when she finally gets outside and meets the people of her kingdom, her speech becomes more casual and confident, but it still keeps flip-flopping sometimes instead of keeping that natural progression. It was like they couldn't decide when she should be formal or casual or soft-spoken or confident or any combination of the four as soon as she got out of that castle. The overall pacing of the story was also a little off because the sense of time was kind of janky. I couldn't tell what the timeline was for anything unless the characters outright said when the earlier events happened, and I really couldn't tell if everything was happening over the course of a couple of weeks or within the span of a few days. Like how in Snow White's training montage, it wasn't clear if it was happening over a few days or just one. Then there are some elements of the story that I wish the film spent a little more time on or showed a few more scenes of. Like with the Beast, I wish it was shown a few more times instead of just a glimpse or two with a few off-screen mentions in between before that final showdown. Or that there were at least a few more hints given of its true nature instead of just a couple shots of something that obviously seems very important and then having that tie back in at the end. I also wish there were a few more scenes of Snow White and the prince interacting without the threat of the queen hanging over them or with magic being involved. That way, the progression of the relationship would have felt more natural and better paced, as the romance between them feels a little rushed and stilted at times. Also, this is more of a personal nitpick than a legit critique, but the love potion turning out to be for puppy love rather than romantic love was kind of cringe and not that funny, except for the scene where they're trying to break it. But that's honestly just because my sense of humor has changed in the past 13 years since this film came out, so if you still find it funny, great, it's really just a me problem. Overall, Mirror Mirror gets a B+. It's a great Snow White live-action adaptation, but it does have a few flaws that prevent it from getting a higher grade. The pacing especially bogged it down from getting a solid A, along with all the other critiques I gave out earlier. Otherwise, the film managed to age pretty well, all things considered, and Snow White really does feel and stay true to the Snow White we all know and love with her kindness, but with the added twist of bravery and the desire to grow into a strong leader worthy of her people. So if you want to watch a live-action Snow White film that's lighthearted and fun, with an amazing cast, great action, and good comedy, while staying true to the essence of Snow White, Mirror Mirror is definitely the film for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Reminder that this is just my opinion, so you can take it with as many grains of salt as you want. I don't mind either way, and would love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment which film you'd like me to give my 2 cents about next. This is some random Neko, going off to take a nap now. Don't forget to keep calm and just meow.